One of these EVs goes 0 to 60 faster than a $20 million McLaren F1, while only costing $22,000.
The other one can charge to 80% in the same amount of time that you would be waiting in the Starbucks line. And what blew both our minds is that you can get both these cars for under $25,000 and save over $1,600 annually in fuel.
We're doing a deep dive review of the best used EVs under $25,000.
We're gonna cover real world range, the charging experience, the tech that actually matters, and the stuff that dealers won't tell you.
By the time we tell you which one we'd choose, you'll be seriously questioning why anybody would spend $45,000, $50,000 on a brand new gas car. We looked at a ton of cars for this video, but there's two we're gonna focus on primarily: the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and the Tesla Model 3. Now we're looking at the all-wheel drive variant of both of these cars, and we're looking at 22 and newer. We wanted to focus on vehicles that both had heat pumps and both had similar specs and were fairly priced between that $20,000 to $25,000 price point.
Yeah, so for both cars, for under 50,000 miles, you can pick one up for around 20 to 23K, and that would be the SEL trim on the Ioniq 5 and the long-range all-wheel drive trim on the Model 3.
So what do you actually get for your 20 grand and change? So for the Hyundai Ioniq battery pack, the extended range, we're only looking at the extended range vehicles in both. You have about 77.4 kilowatts gross in the Hyundai Ioniq, and then the usable was about 74 kilowatts. Contrasting that to the Model 3 long-range all-wheel drive, you had a 82 kilowatt hour battery pack, and then you had 75 kilowatts usable. What does that get us in range, Carson?
Now, for the Tesla Model 3, the stated range was 353 miles in range, but from Edmund's real-world test, it actually got 345 miles of range. For the Ioniq 5 Limited, so a trim-up of what we were looking at, the stated range was 256, but it actually got 270 miles in range.
We looked at the SE or the SEL trim?
The SEL.
So the SEL trim had about 266, and the Limited has a lot more electronics and things, might even have larger wheels, and that's why it was 256 instead of 266.
Yeah, so you might get even better range on the SEL.
So Tesla's been slapped on the wrist more than one time, I think, for overestimating the range, so that's not a big surprise. Awesome to see that Hyundai overshot what it, in the real world, what it actually was estimated to get, but that is still a big discrepancy. What is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost 80 miles difference between the Model 3 and the Ioniq 5. That's a lot that you're missing from the Ioniq 5.
If you're hardcore road tripper, it's even hard with that because, as you know, we're going to go into charging in a second, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But there's a pretty big discrepancy in terms of real-world range. Obviously, the Ioniq 5 has some usability and size as a SUV. We'll just call it a hatchback. Let's talk about charging. So in previous videos, we have gotten slapped on the wrist a little bit for not talking about charging curve, and I think for fair reason. So this is a perfect time to have that conversation. The Tesla Model 3 is rated to be around 250 kilowatts of DC fast charging. So think when you're at a V3 or a V4 supercharger, that's the maximum, the peak amount that the Model 3 will accept. Now on paper, that is faster than what the Ioniq 5 is. Carson's going to tell us about that in a second.
Yes.
But what it equates to in the real world is the Model 3 has higher peak, but I don't know if it's actually faster charging overall.
Yes, so the Ioniq 5, the peak charging is around 240 kilowatts, but because it sustains that 240 kilowatt peak for longer, it charges way faster. So the 10 to 80% in the Model 3 is around 26 to 30 minutes, and the 10 to 80% in the Ioniq 5 is around 18 minutes. So that's almost a 15-minute discrepancy between the two. So even though you get almost 80 miles less in range, you're charging 10 minutes faster than if you had a Model 3.
It makes my brain hurt. Lower peak charging, but faster charging overall.
Yes.
Performance-wise, these cars have a lot in common, but they also have some big differences. So some of you may think the Ioniq 5 is not a fair comparison to the Model 3 because it's more like a Model Y, and that definitely shows in its heft. So how much does it weigh?
So the Ioniq 5 weighs around 4,400 pounds for the 2022 SEL, and then the Model 3 weighs 4,000 and change. So that's about a 400-pound difference between the two, and the Ioniq 5 is closer to the Model Y than it is to the Model 3.
But either way, let's talk about, so in terms of performance, if you want that sharp, smooth handling, obviously the Model 3 is a better choice. Now in our research, we found out that the Kia EV6 was a little bit sharper in terms of suspension tuning, even though they're on the same platform as the Ioniq 5, the EV6, the Kia EV6 that is. And so that car might present a great value. Now, obviously, the newer vehicles that are outside the scope of this $25,000 series, the Hyundai Ioniq N is an absolute beast of a superstar when it comes to 0 to 60. However, handling on the Model 3 so far, it's got a little award for that. And then the 0 to 60 has a slight edge, right?
Yeah, so the 0 to 60 for the Model 3 is 4.2 seconds, and the 0 to 60 on the Ioniq 5 is 4.4 seconds. But the thing is, with the Model 3, you can buy the acceleration boost for $2,000 and get it down to, I think, 3.8, 3.9. Or if you get the performance, that gets it all the way down to 3.5. So that's almost a second faster.
So in our previous category, clearly the Ioniq takes the cake for charging. The Model 3 takes the cake for range. And I think the Model 3 takes the cake again in terms of speed, like just performance, acceleration. Okay, practicality. So the Ioniq 5 starts to edge ahead a little bit here. Right out of the gate, the one big thing with the Ioniq 5 that was nice is while the Tesla Model 3 stopped coming with a charger or the Tesla mobile connector in 22 and 23, the Ioniq 5 steps things up. They included a V2L adapter. So V2L is vehicle to load. This means if you're someone that likes to go camping, you can plug this adapter right into your charge port and then backfeed something like a toaster or a hairdryer or something that you might want to use when you're camping.
Or yeah, even if your power goes out for an extended amount of time, and let's say you just want to plug in your fridge, you could do that from the Ioniq 5. So going into space though, people like to compare the Ioniq 5 to the Model Y because they're both hatches, but we didn't think that was correct because they're around the same in cargo space. The Ioniq 5 only has around 4 more cubic feet of space in the trunk and is a similar wheelbase.
So the other big thing is the Ioniq 5 has a teeny tiny front trunk, and the Model 3 has a much larger front trunk that they've optimized. So there's a little bit of give and take there. The Model 3 has that bigger front trunk. I love it for groceries because you can have them out in the cold and you don't have to worry about them if you're in a cooler climate warming up inside the car while you're driving around. So that's a big deal to some people, and some people it's not. But it seems like the Ioniq 5 makes up for that in terms of storage space in the back.
Yes.
In terms of practicality and livability, preconditioning is a huge thing. I was blown away when Carson told me, so obviously the Tesla Model 3 has preconditioning. When you put in a supercharger stop or a destination, it starts to warm up or cool down your battery, so it's at the optimal temperature to charge as fast as possible. Now I knew the Ioniq 5 had it, or I thought it did, but you gave me a little bit of a twist.
Yes, so only 2023 Ioniq 5s and newer came with preconditioning. So the 2022 did not have it, the launch Ioniq 5 did not have it. And the one caveat about preconditioning on the Ioniq 5 is that you have to use the onboard navigation system. So instead of using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto with Google Maps or Apple Maps, you now have to use Hyundai's map.
So it's kind of similar to Tesla in that way, though.
It is, but I would say Tesla software is a lot better, especially with, you were just talking about preconditioning. Before, Teslas didn't have the option to precondition at third-party fast chargers, so like EVgo or EA, but they released an update, and now Tesla's precondition when you're navigating to a third-party fast charger.
So this is a great segue to go into the app then. I haven't used Hyundai BlueLink in a while, but the last time that I used it on my Kona EV, it was horrendous. Having dogs or like wanting to turn the climate on or unlock the car, I mean, it's like it feels like you're waiting for centuries. Compared to the Tesla Model 3 or any Tesla really, it's almost instantaneous as long as the car has cell service. So that was like a big thing. It is hard to live with BlueLink once you've used something
Tesla,
like
yes.
Yeah.
I think in all our testing with all our apps that we've done, Tesla takes the #1 spot out of all the apps, out of Chevy, Hyundai, Kia, just because it's so much faster, it's so much more responsive. The UI is a lot better.
And you don't have to pay for it.
And you don't have to pay for it. All these services, so Hyundai BlueLink, Chevy, OnStar, you have to pay for to even be able to remote start your car from your phone.
So for honorable mentions that we left out, but we still think are great EVs, is the Polestar 2 to start off with. They made very few of these compared to the others, including some of our other honorable mentions. They probably produced 1/3 to 1/2 of these versus the other cars in the lineup. And I don't even mean the Model 3, which they produced a crazy amount of. The next one to bring up is the Chevy Equinox EV. So this started production in 2024. It was cheap when it came out. The prices are already going down to underneath 25K. It's just way too new to review at this point. There's just a lot. I think it's going to depreciate heavily, so I don't want to like bring that into the mix.
Especially with the new Bolt coming out, I think that's going to add to it.
Yeah, I don't know how the Equinox is going to compete with that. And the last one that we left out, our Chattanooga, Tennessee favorite, is the Volkswagen ID4. Now, listen, we love you ID4 owners. We think you're great people. This is no diss against you. We left it out because we kind of think it's a second-class EV. What do I mean by that? Well, it's a lot heavier than its counterparts. It's not as fast 0 to 60 wise. It has a lot of extra heft to carry around. It does have an okay DC fast charging rate of around 150, 160 kilowatts on those Electrify America stalls, and I know you guys got a couple years of free charging. It has a lot of great things going for it, and you can find it for a great price, but it's just, when you're looking at the Chevy Bolt and the Kona EV at the lower end, and these other cars like the Ioniq 5 and the Model 3 at the higher end, even the Polestar, it's hard to look at the ID4 and be like, this is a really great value.
It's hard to justify for the price difference between going from an ID4 to an Ioniq 5 or a Tesla Model 3. You just get so much more with these two cars than you would with the ID4.
So that wraps up our best used EVs under $25,000.
So let us know down below which one you guys would pick out of the ones we mentioned, or let us know if you would pick a different one that we didn't mention. And thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
That wraps up our best used EVs under $25,000. Good gosh. I'm not doing this. You're going to get through it.